Hey there, welcome to ProTech. Today we'd like to share a video on replacing a serpentine belt sent to us by Eric Obrochta from South Main Auto Repair in Avoca, New York. Eric does a great job taking you through the entire process. Check it out.
Hey there folks, my name is Eric O. I'm a shop owner here in upstate New York. Got about 18 years experience in the automotive field, and today I'd like to talk to you about your serpentine belt. So in most cases, your serpentine belt or your main serpentine belt is driven off the crankshaft of the vehicle, so it's going to be your main pulley down on the engine, and then it's used to spin other devices such as your alternator, water pump, AC compressor, power steering, in some cases superchargers, old pollution pumps on some older vehicles. You got vacuum pumps on some diesel applications, so it's got quite a job to do, and like I say, it just needs maintenance like anything else on the vehicle. Now before you start any work on your own vehicle, make 100% sure you're comfortable with it, you know and understand all the safety precautions that have to be taken, particularly if you have to jack up the vehicle or remove a wheel to perform this service. Make sure you have the proper service manuals, tools, and parts required to do the job. Now this vehicle here has a worn out serpentine belt, and it has the very classic, chirping sound. Sounds like a little bird stuck under your hood. Just keeps chirping and carrying on. Now that can be an indicator of other problems. In this case, it's just a worn serpentine belt. So let's have a listen to that. Now before you go start taking your serpentine belt off, again, make sure you know what kind of belt tensioning device the vehicle has. Most newer vehicles are equipped with what we would refer to as automatic belt tensioners, which are also a wearable item on a vehicle, but some of them have manual belt tensioners. And like I say, refer to your service manual to be 100% sure what kind of tensioning device you have. And the other thing that's important to do is to know what way the belt routing is. Now, you've got this one big long belt, and this thing loops and snakes around through all the various pulleys and accessories that it drives. And the last thing you want to do is get it off and then be staring there, how the heck does this thing go back on? So make sure you're aware of that too. So we can see here on this particular vehicle, we actually have a belt routing diagram right under the hood, which is really helpful. We've got the two different engine configurations that are available in this car. This is the one we're going to be using, so you can see how this belt runs around, from the crankshaft to the AC compressor, and idler pulley and water pump and belt tensioner and alternator and another idler pulley. So you take that belt off, it can get confusing pretty quick. So on this vehicle here, we had to remove the passenger side tire, the little plastic splash shield that goes here that protects the belt and this side of the engine from getting road debris and water spray and stuff on and off from the tires. We can see, we've got our main drive pulley here, our crankshaft pulley, we've got our AC compressor, the water pump. There's another idler pulley way up there. We have an idler pulley right here. We've got the alternator and then our automatic belt tensioner. Now this particular car has an automatic belt tensioner with the wear indicators built right into it. Now a lot of these have wear indicators on them, but you're going to have to look in your service manual to see, how to interpret, the different notches and pointing device and what indicates a worn belt. Now, like I mentioned, an automatic belt tensioner you're going to find on most modern vehicles. They're pretty nice in the sense that they're typically easy to get to and release the tension to remove the belt, and they also keep a constant tension on the belt as the belt ages and wears. So we're going to go ahead and release the tension off this belt and remove it off one of the pulleys. We'll just start right down here on the crankshaft pulley. Sometimes it's easier to take it off a smaller pulley first, and then we'll have to get our wrench back, which sometimes can be a little tricky. There we go. And then, like I say, make darn sure you know how this thing goes back on. We're just going to go ahead and just snake it right out of here. We'll get our new belt. But before we do that, I like to go through and spin some of the pulleys. So this is the idler pulley on the AC compressor. We've got our water pump here. We've got the idler on the tensioner. We've got the alternator. Go ahead and spin that, and then we're going to have to reach way up here and give this idler pulley a spin up here. Now if you have any noise, excessive play in any of these drive accessories, you're definitely going to want to have that checked out or repaired. And like I say, if you're not confident doing this job or have any doubt, definitely have it done by a professional. So besides looking at the indicator on the belt tensioner to see if your belt's wore out or changing it by a service interval, you can get these belt checking tools, and they just sit right down in the groove of these. Now these belts are made out of an EPDM rubber, so they don't have a tendency to crack like some of the older belts do, where it was, pretty obvious visual inspection. Hey, my belt's all cracked, it's wore out. So these here, you actually stick this device right down in the groove of the belt, and then you have to look at it on a side profile. And if you can see the tool sticking above the rib of the belt, it indicates that the belt's still good. But in this case, we can see that, these belts actually wear down into these grooves without cracking. It's kind of hard to demonstrate there. We stick that in there, try to hold it as flat as possible. And we can look across that and we can see, well, we don't really see that tool sticking up. And sometimes it's easier just to run your finger across these and see if you can feel the tool sticking up. Now when we compare this to the new belt that we have, we can almost see that these grooves, just aren't as deep because the belt's not worn yet. And when we look across that, we see the tool clearly sticking up above that V in the belt. So getting the belt back on can be a little trickier to demonstrate than taking the old one off, and a lot of it is due to the fact of the way they package them. So when they sit in the sleeves, the belts have a tendency to, kind of take the shape as the way they're packaged. And as frustrating as that can be, sometimes that can be a benefit to you because the belt will kind of hold its shape and you can use it to fish up in there and get on that first idler pulley, and then we're just going to work our way around and then release our tension, get it back on, we're good to go. So we're going to shoot right up to that top idler pulley first. Now one thing I will mention when you're doing this job, you're fishing your belt around there. Now some spots are kind of tricky to get to, as you may discover, and you may have a tendency to want to use a screwdriver or something to kind of poke your belt up there. Now I have to caution you against that. Don't do that. You don't want to jeopardize the belt in any way by putting any nicks or marks in it and promoting premature wear or even the belt fouling. So we've got our belt fished and snaked around all the pulleys. Now I saved the Serpentine belt tensioner for last. I want to make sure we're definitely in there. We're off on this AC just a little bit. There we go. Got that snapped in the groove there. Let's give a quick visual inspection. You don't want it riding up on the edge of any of the grooves. Now, like I mentioned, when we took it off the crankshaft, which, taking off is not a big deal, but sometimes putting them on with the new belts are a little bit snugger, so it's a whole lot easier to put them on a smaller pulley last than it is to try to fish over a bigger diameter pulley. I'll take and pull the tension off this. I'll get our belt put on there. There we go. Now before you start it, you definitely want to make sure, wiring harnesses are all out of the way. Like on this car here, this harness is actually hanging a little bit loose back by this alternator, so we're going to have to make sure that's back off out of the way. We don't want anything touching the belt. If we got fender liners to put back, we'll do that. And then make darn sure that belt's in all the grooves just as it was. Folks, maintaining the Serpentine belt on your automobile. Now in this case we had to remove the right front tire and inner splash shield to be able to get in there and get to that belt tensioner and get the Serpentine belt out. But in other cases you have to do it from the top side of the vehicle, reaching down through the hood, and over the fender to get to the tensioner and various accessories. Sometimes the belt sits right in the front of the engine like it does on a lot of pickup trucks and rear-wheel drive vehicles. Sometimes there's multiple belts too, or the belt will be over on the left side. So a lot of different types, different styles, different applications depending on the manufacturer. So make sure you're familiar with what you're working with. Make sure you're equipped with proper service manual, tools, and know-how. If not, like I say, seek a professional to have this job done. And safety, of course, safety is number one. You definitely don't want any accidents happening where you're trying to just maintain your belt. And that'll do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit about your Serpentine belt and how to maintain it. Again, my name's Eric O, and thanks for watching.